And welcome to this South Eastern Area Planning Committee meeting on Wednesday the 6th of April 2022. My name is Councillor Vanessa Bell and I am the chairman of this committee. Members, we are streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting you are giving your consent to being recorded. During each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you at the appropriate time. Please note that the YouTube live stream sound recording is dependent on the correct use of the microphones. Therefore, can I ask that when invited to speak, you remember to turn your microphones on and then turn it off when finished. Please reference a page or paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers and keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. Finally, can I draw your attention to the notices on the agenda papers regarding the different levels within the chamber and advise that in the event of a fire, please use the fire exits marked with the green running man. Item 2, apologies for absence. I believe we have no apologies this evening, Berna, is that right?
That's correct, Chairman.
Thank you. Item 3, minutes. It is recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of March 2022, found on pages 7 to 8, are approved as a true and accurate record. Councillor Jewett and then Councillor Chan.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Relative to those minutes of the last meeting, I did raise a point at the last meeting about Red Lions Farm. 3-4 months since we previously discussed it. It still isn't back on this paper tonight. Is anybody actually doing anything about it?
I'm afraid I'm going to put you on the spot, Councillor Johnson, and ask if you can... Councillor, I've changed your role. Mr Johnson, I'm afraid I'm putting you on the spot. Can you help us out with that at all?
Thank you, Chair. My understanding from colleagues is that the matter will be reported at the next committee in full. Unfortunately, I wasn't privy to the sort of background discussions on that, although I am familiar with Red Lions itself. But how it relates to the matter that came out of the committee that considered the application and to which it was deferred, I haven't been privy to that. But at the next committee, I am assured that that will be the case, and I will be supporting that with additional information.
Thank you, Mr Johnson. Councillor Jewett again, then Councillor Chan.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. If I may come back on that. I mean, by the next meeting, I believe, if I've done my sums right, it'll be 5 months since we deferred it. It really is not good enough. Somebody could have dealt with it very, very easily, very, very quickly. 4.5 months ago, we could have, 3.5 months ago, we could have had it here tonight. It's not good enough. Somebody somewhere's not doing their jobs properly. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Channer.
Madam Chairman, Councillor Jewett's gone on the same topic I have actually. I just wanted to check I hadn't missed something because it was quite clear. And it was recorded, it was agreed that an update on this application was circulated to all members.
Yeah,
and I didn't get that, so I'm assuming all members didn't.
No, nothing.
So,
no.
I think I'm referring to Mr Johnson what's going to happen, but you know, just by having that there, I think then we should have had the update, even from you, Madam Chairman, if you'd be.
Well, I've not been advised of anything, members, so certainly not holding anything from you. Councillor Fluker.
Thank you very much. Chairman, I'm surprised it's not actually in the minutes, to be honest with you. And I know it was in the minutes last time, so I'm surprised really nobody from the planning department actually picked up on this. But Chairman, while we've got the attention of Mr Johnson, who I understand is now taken, I won't say overall, but he's certainly taken more active interest in enforcement. I mean, would you be prepared to meet with the councillors from this committee to discuss the South East Area Planning enforcement cases? This is something that happened before your time, but I think this would be very, very useful, particularly for this committee, because historically we've always had more enforcement cases within this area than anywhere else. So maybe you'd like to meet with the chairman afterwards, not after this meeting, but sometime, and perhaps work towards that, because I think that's something that the members have certainly got a lot out of in the past. It was something which I actually brought forward some years ago, and we managed to compact the list quite a lot. So I think it's useful for everybody. And I'm sorry to go off on that tangent, Chairman.
I think we can look at having that on the agenda for the next meeting, Mr Johnson. Can we? Oh, hello.
May I interrupt just for
Please do.
Chairman, I just remind all members that there was a resolution at council that enforcement will not be dealt with on area planning committees, but will be dealt with directly by planning. So any members that have an issue, they contact planning and a meeting can be set up through planning. But it was a council resolution.
Bernard,
Of course, I can
yes.
send you the resolution. Yes.
Thank you very much. I will now go to Councillor Channer. And I would like to get the minutes agreed pretty quickly if we can, please, members. Yeah, if Councillor Channer can speak and then we can agree the minutes, that would be lovely, members.
Well, going back to what Councillor Lucan just said, in fact, at full council, I made the point when actually a question was put about enforcement, I think it was from Councillor Durham actually, that at one time, and to my knowledge, it hasn't been overtaken, it was agreed that the planning committees could meet on the chairman calling such a meeting to look at enforcement only. It would be an informal meeting, not in public, and the enforcement officers would be there. No individual member can instruct an officer on enforcement, and indeed a committee can't instruct and say to Mr Johnson, go and put a stop notice on this. But what can happen is members could go through the worksheets of them, ask questions, and there could be local knowledge, and that resulted actually in some other cases being closed or perhaps progressed in the light of some information that came forward. And it was solely for enforcement, that informal meeting held by at the discretion of the committee chairman to call it. And that is what I said at full council. I considered all committee chairmen should have to consider calling a meeting. To my knowledge, that has not been removed from the system. And I don't know that that resolve overtakes it, but if it does, I'm not sure all members would have realised that was the case. I see it more a case we can't say, Mr Johnson, go and do this, go and do that. But what we can do is go through a list and look at stuff and ask questions. And that can lead to some cases actually being closed or progression in action.
So, can we have confirmation of that, please, Berna, at some, whether that is still active?
Yes, Chairman, I will circulate the resolution from council first thing in the morning.
Thank you.
And then obviously it can be taken forward. It's essentially saying that the scheduled area planning committee is not used for enforcement, but of course enforcement meetings can be called through chairman
Right.
and members directly.
Okay. Thank you very much. Councillor Jewett,
Yes, Madam Chairman, just to confirm what Councillor Mrs Channer said, there was in fact one such meeting held at South East. It was a long time ago, and I don't believe there's been any other meetings held since. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Well, I don't think we have another meeting before do we have another meeting before the statutory annual? I'm not sure. So I think I suggest we don't.
Well, Madam Chairman, you can
I could call it,
you
couldn't
don't
I?
have to wait, but we're not talking about it being forming part of a South East area planning like that. We're talking about an informal
Yeah,
meeting.
I suggest I won't in between now and the statutory annual because we don't know who'll be chairing this committee afterwards. So I think I shall leave that until after the statutory annual. Now, moving on, can we please agree these minutes by assent? Thank you. Item 4, declarations of interest to disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other pecuniary interests or non-pecuniary interests relating to items of business on the agenda having regard to paragraphs 6 to 8 inclusive of the Code of Conduct for members. Do we have any? Councillor Stamp, Helm and Fluker. We'll start with you, Councillor Stamp.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just that I'm a member of Essex County Council who are statutory consultees on all planning, well, not all planning applications and some of them, but I can't see anything that puts me in a difficult position. I would like to say, though, that I have had correspondence with some of the items or some of the applicants on this, but it's non-pecuniary, not done anything wrong. So, okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Helm. I believe you were next.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Item 6, Mrs. Patton is also a member of this council and known to me and everybody
Well, I
else.
think we're all in the same position
Thank you.
with that, Councillor Helm. Councillor Fluker, was that what you were intending?
I'll
to-
still declare that because I'm acquainted to the Pattons. They're not friends, but I'm acquainted to them. Yeah.
Thank you. And members, just to remind you that should any such interest become apparent, thank you, I appear to have lost the ability to speak. Apparent throughout the meeting, members should declare those. So let's move on then to item 5, 01160 VAR, which is a variation of approval. Woodpeckers, 15 Mangap Chase, and you'll find this on pages 9 to 28 of your agenda. There is no members update for this application, so I'm going to move straight to Mr. Johnson and the technology to present this report.
I suppose just as a preamble, I'm in the whether enviable or unenviable position of presenting all the cases today. So I'll be doing my usual position and also juggling with the presentation as well. So Woodpeckers, 15 Mangap Chase, Burnham on Couch. This application proposes a variation on condition 2 on approved planning permission 20012884, which is the demolition of the existing outbuildings and erection of 5 number dwellings. I would just sort of add that with this proposal, there would be 6 dwellings on site, which includes the existing dwelling, which sort of lies central. And I'll point that out in the drawings when we look at that. The recommendation is to approve, subject to the applicant entering into a legal agreement pursuant to section 106 of the Town and Country Planning Act, and also subject to conditions set out at section 8. So just go through the drawings. We can, this is a site highlighted here. And this is the location plan, and this has the outline of the scheme that the 2020 scheme with this particular layout. The block plans here show, well, under existing, which is the layout proposed under the existing extant planning permission. I'll just point out a few things, largely the same, major visual changes from the plan would be in this area here. This is plot 3. This is the existing house which I mentioned. We've got plot 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, just for identification's sake. Plot 5 is arranged parallel to the boundary here, so that's the side elevation there. Plot 4, this is its rear elevation, so again we can see just the relationship with the boundary. On plot 3, which is a significant part of these amendments, the side elevation of plot 3 is parallel with the boundary here, and the rear elevation is up here. So I'll just sort of point those things out. And this is the proposed scheme. So we can see the changes here. Plot 3 sort of turned sort of 45 degrees with its rear elevation now facing the boundary here. These are rear extensions, just sort of point that out there. The other arrangements are, again, as approved. You can see garages here, existing house, and so on. Garage go over there. No change to anywhere else on the site. So we've got plots 1 and 2 elevations approved under the previous extant permission. So plots 1 and 2 here facing the street. So that's the front. These are the sides. Here's the rear. Plot 3, the bungalow, as approved, and the extant planning permission there. We can see that there, front, rear, and sides. And this is plots 1, 2, and 3, but effectively plot 3 is a similar design to plots 1 and 2. You can see the rear extension there. I pointed that out earlier. Okay. Elevation of plot 4. I mean, the changes to the other buildings as set out in the report are dormer windows, roof lights, etc. Those elevations there, just to, you can see the front elevation. Yeah, dormer there. Rear elevation, no changes there. Exactly the same. Side elevations. There's a roof light in the hip roof there. You can just see the changes here on this elevation as approved. You can see that there's been windows removed from there. And elevation 5 is approved. Again, just point out the changes in the front elevation, a couple of dormers. And in the rear elevation, we can see some changes. Again, in the apex here, we've got some windows inserted. This is serving the space created within the roof. These particular windows here. And then we can see more roof lights. Side elevation, no change there. And we can see the floor plans. These were approved. The fundamental things really is under plot 3. Obviously, that then now has a first floor, and the areas in the roof. These are identified as games rooms, storage, and again, obviously, just to point out, these are roofs with hips, so they've got restricted height, and there we can see where the roof lights are here, serving the landing and the stairwell there. This over here is identified as storage. We've got a roof light over there. We've got plot 4 approved and proposed. Again, sorry, I can move this. Sorry, Bernard. But again, just point out some in the storage area. We've got some roof lights there serving the landing. Any other changes were identified on the elevations. And again, plot 5, it's the areas up in the roof. That's existing roof space. And again, a couple of roof lights here. And as I mentioned, in the apex, we have these windows in the rear elevations at that level. This is a garage that was approved and what it's been changed to. Got some photographs of the site. That's the access here. Looking north, south view. Photographs, dwellings opposite, application site. And again, just more photos looking at the site itself. Obviously, development is underway. We can see site preparation, etc. Right, so I'll just take this back to the block plan showing the existing and the proposed. And I'll just make a few comments. As I said, 3.1.4 sets out the changes. Most significant is the alteration of the bungalow at plot 3 to a 2-story dwelling with rooms in the roof. The impact of plot 3 on surrounding residential amenities set out at 5.5 of the report, as well as any other impacts. It is noted the location of the other dwellings have not changed in terms of their relationship to surrounding properties and the boundaries. Plot 3 is set approximately 14 meters from the single-story element to its rear, from the rear boundary, and a distance of almost 20 meters from the rear boundary to the 2-story element. That's the new proposed element. To this would be added the distance of the existing house to its rear. So again, as quite evident here and what was explained there, it's the distance to the boundary here. And then in addition, that's the rear boundary, and in addition is the distance there. This existing property obviously has a transverse relationship to the boundary, so it's set obliquely in terms of any direct views. So just bring that to members' attention. And subsequent paragraphs under section 5 also sets out the nature of the impact and consider these to be acceptable, and these are within the impact on terms of residential amenity. The other changes that we've pointed out: dormer windows and roof lights in the other properties. 5.8.2, the report sets out the context of the affordable housing requirement now required as a result of the changes and the weight to be placed on that, particularly balancing the loss of a 2-bedroom dwelling and its replacement with a 4-bedroom, of which there is a lesser need in the district, having also regard to the impact of the other changes. 5.8.3 substantiates the position taken by officers in recommending the scheme for approval in the planning balance, and as highlighted by an inspector in a recent appeal decision concerning affordable homes and the need for that within the district. The recommendation includes heads of terms of a Section 106 legal agreement for a commuted sum. And details of that, see the housing officer comments at 7.2 of the report, and a RAMS payment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. So, members, I will hand the floor over to you, Councillor Stern, and then Councillor Shannon.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. My only comment is I'm really disappointed that they have chosen to not put a 2-bedroom bungalow in when we know there's a shortage of bungalows. Look at all the developments, especially in Burnham on Crouch. There is a massive shortage of bungalows in there. Obviously, most probably not with some recent appeals at the moment. But I think a 2-bedroom bungalow would really fit nicely on there. So you could have most probably families and maybe a parent or somebody who chooses to downsize and could be close to a family. I know it's not a planning matter, but I think it's worth saying. I think it's a real shame that, yet again, applicants have chosen to come back with more after the original planning application that was approved in 2020. It is what it is. It is where it is. It's just going to create more traffic on that single 60-mile-an-hour road on Green Lane, because they will come up there. I don't know if there's a traffic management report or whatever's going to go in there to make sure you've got the wheel washing, because otherwise, I mean, I drove down the Southminster Road when I was looking at the sign, the town sign, the other day, and it is still, even after wheel washing on that site, there is dirt everywhere on the Southminster Road, especially coming into Burnham from the site. And I know developers are trying to do the wheel washing, and then I think Councillor Fluker raised it at one of the previous meetings about wheel washing again. The town is looking dusty and dirty because of all the development going in there. I think it needs to be, forgive me if it is a planning condition, Mr. Johnson, but you need to make sure that those big lorries are not coming via the bottom of Green Lane in there. And the biggest problem is there are other developments happening on Green Lane, and the amount of we've got speeding things going down there because we've got a speeding issue, and we're actually looking for highways to maybe reduce the 60 to a lesser speed because it is causing issues. But other than that, there's no reason. I know we can't disagree with it or not approve it really at the moment, but I think it should stay as a 2-bedroom. It's a shame it's not.
Thank you. Councillor Shannon, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Referring to page 17, 5.5.3, it says there have been no changes to the scheme in terms of layout and any minor increase. I know Mr. Johnson's explained all that, but when I look at the existing and proposed, to me, plot 3, it looks to me like the orientation of the dwelling is now different. So to me, that is a change in layout, and it looks closer to the residential boundary of the next door property. I understand from the report there's no residential loss of amenity to that other planned property. However, I just make an inquiry on that, because to me there has been a change in layout. Moot point possibly, but to me there has, but it doesn't mean to say I won't agree with the officer recommendation. It's just that going through it and seeing it now on the screen, I believe there is a change in layout as well, specifically regarding property or plot 3, which is now changing.
Thank you. Mr Johnson, would you like
No, I do acknowledge that. I think I clearly said that there was a change in the layout. There is, you know, with particularly plot 3, I think that was an error, probably an oversight in terms of the officer looking at the scheme in its totality. But yeah, but technically there is clearly a change in the layout, and you know its impact otherwise in terms of the scheme as approved has been assessed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hull, then Councillor Skeens.
Thank you. I agree with Councillor Stamp about this bungalow. It's a shame that it has to be changed. What I'm also wanting to know, with all this energy crisis we have at the moment, is there any chance, if we did pass this, that they could have solar panels or something fitted into the houses?
I think that would have needed to have been a condition when it was initially agreed, would it not, Mr Johnson?
Yeah, I mean that is a difficulty because I mean it's a variation. It's under Section 73, which would mean that variations to existing schemes can take place without substantially altering the nature of the existing scheme. If we start getting to a point where we're starting to really change things, substantially changing conditions and this sort of stuff, then we start to strain into the point now, is it actually a variation to the original scheme that's in front of us? Now, while we're taking a view, and it is set out in the report, that the change from a bungalow to a two-story, given the relatively minor nature of the other changes, is still within the envelope, starting to change the nature of conditions and add on to that and design impacts, that just may start making us think, do we have a Section 73 application in front of us? It may be a bit of a fine point, but...
they're able to put all the extra dormers on and all the extra windows, then that's changed. I wouldn't have thought solar panels are much different.
Well, I mean,
I think the point is we can't make them.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just them putting on solar panels. When we're controlling it through the planning application, we want to consider its nature, its design, etc. It's not the same as if somebody under your standard house says, oh, I want to put solar panels up, and then they cover the whole roof, with the sort of solar panels. We don't have any control over that.
If we're a council, I would have thought, with the circumstances at the moment, it would be our job to point it out and push it as much as we could.
No, I appreciate that. I'm not.
Change, life does change, as we all know, with the war going on, it's changing a lot.
Yeah.
Change planning law, though, Councillor Hull. I'm going to go to Councillor Skeens now, and then Councillor Fluker afterwards.
Yeah, I just want to support Councillor Stamp in what she said. It is a source of incredible frustration when somebody puts in an application that has something in it that is of appeal, such as a bungalow, and then later on they drop it. That is happening more and more, and on bigger and bigger scales. And so you find yourself wondering whether you can believe the first presentation, and you do find yourself wondering, well, what power do we have? Sure, I mean, I can see that in law we wouldn't be able to change that, but why are we? Well, I'm not going to ask why; it's too big a question to ask. But it is a source of extreme frustration among the public and among councillors that an attractive proposition is put in, and then the very thing that was attractive is then removed because they know that they can do that. And so that affects the initial vote, and then you can't do anything about it in the second vote, though I can't find myself supporting it for that reason myself.
Thank you. Councillor Fluke, I believe you
Thank you,
wish to
Chairman.
come in, and then Councillor Boyce.
Chairman, obviously, I'm at a slight disadvantage. By the way, I know Woodpeckers because years ago I used to know the person that lived there, and he held another place where there were glorious parties, Burnham Week. Chairman, I've not heard anything from the Burnham members that's changed my mind away from what the officers said in the presentation. I think it's a very good presentation, and the fact that we're not happy with it, it's clearly not good enough grounds to refuse the application, Chairman, as we all know. So, Chairman, I think based on that, Chairman, I would propose, Chairman, that we approve this recommendation in line with
That's
the
the
officer's
seconding
recommendation.
hand from Councillor Helm there. Councillor Boyce, did you wish to?
Yes,
We have a
Chairman,
proposal on
I
the
just
table.
wish to comment on 5.3, affordable housing. In principle, I'm always opposed to the thought of commuted sums rather than providing the affordable housing in the area that they are being built. Is there any way that this commuted sum within the 106 agreement when it's drawn up, that this commuted sum can be ring-fenced to development in Burnham?
Extremely good question, Councillor Boyce. Thank you. Mr Johnson?
Well, I mean, the commuted sum is paid to the council. And you know, the details, well, not the details of that, but the sort of skeleton details are set out by the housing officer. It would be for the council to then apportion it appropriately.
So is that a yes, technically? Mr. Johnson?
Yes. I have no control over elements of the council, but you know, but in theory, yeah, where we do accept, commuted sums, is for us to then say, well, okay, a case can be made where it may be more appropriately allocated, if not particularly on this site, and that would be the only way within which we can then accept a commuted payment, or we would accept it, rather than in lieu of it being on site.
Thanks, Councillor Boyce. You?
Yes, what Mr Johnson's indicated, that it is actually within the hands of members to achieve. But I think the internal system does not allow members, other than when we get a report that this such and such a commuted sum should be spent in X position. So would it be appropriate to have a report on the commuted sums that are within the council and where they have originated from?
I think it would, Councillor Boyce. I have to defer to Berner, I think. Now, is that something?
Well, it's not something for me planning.
Yeah, Berner, can you help us out? I'm looking at a picture of trees.
Oh, sorry,
We certainly can request, I can certainly take this back and
Please.
find out who would be best placed to deal with this, presumably those working within the Section 106 area, and see what we can do.
That would be marvellous. So if you could do that, and minute that you're going to do that, that would be great, Berner. Thank you very, very much.
No problem.
Can we go to a vote now?
Madam Chair, could I actually ask Mr Richard Jewick if he wouldn't mind shutting this window? I'm getting rained on and I can't reach. Sorry. They've identified purely for height purposes there, Councillor Jewick, I think. Rather chilly as well, so thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Channer.
Thank you. Well, going back to the point Councillor Boyce has mentioned and asking about the commuted sum, can it be aligned with Burnham? As the 106 is a legal document, surely it's not within the possibilities for that not to be the case. If they're entering into 106, and that might be something that Emma Holmes could advise on. Because bearing in mind, when we have agreed developments that are offering up affordable housing rather than such things, we do have a cascading element which we can apply in terms of, let's say, the over 55 big development in Burnham, where it was said we wanted assurances it would be for local people, and it was said Burnham members first, and then the cascading. So to me, if we've got a development in Burnham that's not providing the affordable housing, but it will do the commuted sum, so an affordable housing element can be provided, and it's a significant sum. I would have thought the legal 106 agreement may be able to actually provide a clause within that can be the case. But I seek to take greater legal advice. But could we not, from that committee, formally request in our minutes that we seek that to be the case? And if it can't, well, we'll get to know about it. But I don't think it's an unreasonable request.
Can you add that to the previous Berner, please, for us?
Yes, certainly, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Right, Councillor Stamp.
So just for clarity, are we actually having that excellent suggestion from Councillor Boyce? that it
Yes,
stays
that's
within
been
Burnham on
taken-
Crack. I mean, don't
taken
forget,
back, yeah.
we're getting
With,
hammered, so,
Councillor
yeah.
Chan has added bolstering of that, yes.
Thank
We're
you.
gonna have a-
And
And it will be
minuted.
minuted. Good evening, Councillor Beale, Councillor Fluker.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Can we just be sure we're not adding a condition?
We haven't added a
No,
condition.
you're not adding a condition.
No, we're not
because
adding a
no,
condition. We've
because my-
sought further information for.
Yeah, because my concern is
overarching.
if you do tie yourself to Burnham and you don't have
No.
a proper cascade, we can lose out. But
No,
I mean, we all
no,
know.
no, I certainly
we all
wasn't
know. We all know
proposing
that
that as a condition.
as a result of a recent appeal, we'll be getting £4.5 million in monies towards affordable housing. And before you all get excited, that won't all be going to Burnham, I'm sure. But we should make sure it stays in the
Absolutely.
southeast area,
But
Chairman.
yeah, no, that wasn't a condition.
It's not going to Southminster.
May we now go to?
I think,
Clearly
Chairman, I'm
not.
sorry.
Members,
I
I'm
think
keen to
might-
move on.
I
please.
might need to declare an interest at this point, really.
You've left it a tad late, Councillor
Arms
Boyce.
houses, being a trustee of an arms house, and I mean, I could build a couple of arms bungalows with nearly £400,000.
I reckon it's fair then if you're going to start stretching it around.
Right, I am now moving to the vote. Members, the proposal is that we accept the officer's recommendation to, I think is that assent?
Yeah.
Yeah, marvellous. Oh no, it's not. So that's everybody for, apart from Councillor Skeens, who is against.
Thank you.
So, moving onwards to item 6, which is 01240 VAR, another variation, members. Peyton Place, Nipsell's Chase, Mayland, Essex, which you'll find on pages 29 to 40. I'd be worried if it wasn't in Essex and we're hearing it.
I'll just clarify with Turner if Ben will be changing
There you go. Now we all, as we have mentioned, we all know the one of the applicants because she is a councillor, a member of this council. So I will now hand over to Mr. Johnson again. Mr. Johnson.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman. Planning permission sought for the variation of condition 2 and the removal of condition 8 on approved planning permission 21006284, which approved the construction of a single-storey self-built live work dwelling. And at 3.1.1, details of condition 2 are set out, which is basically the approved drawings. Now, 3.1.2 talks specifically about the proposed amendments. Enlargement of the veranda to the front elevation, new window opening to serve the office, new door opening to serve the utility room, the blocking up of the existing garage door and create a window and door opening to serve what would then become a utility room. And condition 8, again under 3.1.2, talks about the use of the garage solely for a vehicle. So just run through the drawings. We've got this site here. Members obviously familiar with this case. This will have come to committee beforehand. Again, we've got the site sort of here. Right. Okay, existing and proposed floor plans. Now, here's the garage with the car there, and we can see under the proposed drawing, it's now become a utility room with a wet room and some other sort of minor internal changes there. It's got a door. There are a number of other little changes around the place. There's a window here. Some of these were mentioned. That's the sort of same there. There's a door. We go around the building, more or less the same. Around here, everything else there is more or less the same. This is internal, the changes here, but this is a veranda. You just see the veranda there. Again, under the changes, the veranda is just going to be increased in depth by 1 meter. What we can see clearly, it's within the context of the building, but then the building is set within its own site. So no issues there. They're proposing a window there. Again, it's not an issue. I think what we're dealing with here is relatively minor changes, which does not have any impact on the design of the building in any way significant. You know, had the application come in like this originally, it probably would have been approved in this form. I suppose the one thing that probably gives some consideration was condition 8 and the requirement for the maintenance of a garage within the property. I mean, had this been a, you know, standard house, no planning application within a garage, somebody can change it into a utility room, they wouldn't need planning permission. So clearly no issues with the removal of condition 8. There's ample space around the site for car parking, but in the report it does set out there's dedicated area. That's also part of the condition of the original permission, that dedicated space be provided. So the application is recommended for approval as set out within the report. Don't think I need to say any more than that.
Thank you, members. I was going to say, members, I propose we support the recommendation to approve. Thank you. Thank you very much. So that's unanimously agreed for the minutes. Thank you. Okay, this brings us to item 700224, Pond House, Scotts Hill, Southminster. And again, Mr. Johnson, this is found on pages 41 to 48. There is no members update for this item, but we do have a member of the public wishing to speak who I will call upon at the correct time. So if I can go to you first, Mr. Johnson, please.
Right. Bern, if we can have a change of the presentation, please.
Yes, just coming.
Thank you.
Okay. Pond House, Scotts Hill, Southminster. The proposal is demolition of the existing side extension, construction of a new single-story side extension, part single and part two-story rear extension, construction of a raised terrace and alterations to the fenestration. Officer's recommendations to refuse the application for the details set out, and then I'll run through the drawings and make some comments. You can see the site here, access this path here, location plan, not different really. Right, so we've got existing and the proposed site plans. Here is the existing house. And here we can see the new single-story side and two-story rear extension. So just to take the outline, here's the existing house there. Put it over here. There's the extension on that house there. This is our proposed extension. So that's the extension in context of the existing house, which is obviously the fundamental issue at which officers are bringing to members' attention through this recommendation here. And the existing elevations go the front and the rear. Got pitch roofs here. There's a side extension that would be removed. That's it from the other side. And then looking at the side elevations, we can just take again this down here. That's the side elevation there. We can see we've got a little series of a kind of serrated arrangement of the roofs there. But obviously that's from front to back, and that's there on the other side. So again, just wanted to spend a little time just to get the scale of the existing house in our minds. So then we then move to the proposed elevations. Unfortunately, the drawings are juxtaposed against each other, so there'll be some to it throwing. So the side extension will be replaced with this side extension we can see here. Again, if I just go forward, just to remind you, this is what's existing, and this is what's proposed. I set out in the report, it's over half the width of the existing dwelling, so it's obviously more than that. Here's the rear elevation. Now the single story element does wrap around to part, so just following this line here, but just this line here, this is the flat roof element, which we'll see when we look at the plan. Its larger context runs along here. We've got the two-story extension at the back. Now, when we look at the side elevations, again, that gives us a context of the scale of the development. So we can see the two-story rear extension here. The apex is not too dissimilar from the ridge of the existing dwelling. And we can see the extent at which the built form takes back. So when we look at it from its side elevation, at the first floor level, we can again just appreciate the scale of what's being proposed here. Again, here's a flat roof element. You can see the side elevation running there. There's that lantern light on the top there. Again, it's quite evident there's no impact on amenities. The building sort of sits on its own in its plot, but to all intents and purposes, it's a building in the countryside. Yeah, and despite the fact there are no built form immediately juxtaposed against it, it's quite visible from all its aspects. Going to the plan here. Now here we do have the existing building, footprint there, the side extension there, and we can then see the scale of what's proposed here. The report again, as I said, sets out that it's practically a doubling of the floor space. The existing house is 108 square meters. Sorry.
208.
Oh, I wasn't sure who commented. Right, so we can see the flat roof element there. Obviously, this is the pitched sort of dummy type roof to the front of it. This is the two-story element. It's in a way sort of knitted into the existing fabric of the house there. Now, these drawings here, just to compare against a similar scheme submitted beforehand, which was refused. The current scheme has reduced the proposal to some extent. Opposite's argument that it's clearly not enough to propose a building which is considered to be subservient and in keeping, and I'll just go over that in a little bit more detail in a second. Drawings, again, previous scheme, we can see the site there, view from the road, view from the driveway, views of the house from the fields to the rear, views of the house on the side, and closer up. So we can actually see the general style and character of the existing building, and as you also draw out in the report, the sort of disjointed nature of the proposals against what's existing building. Again, that's drawn out in the report. So again, seeing that side and rear. So just a few comments. Yeah, so, and excuse me for slightly repeating some elements. The proposal would result in a doubling of the floor area of the existing house. In that, the width would increase by over a half, as I mentioned, of the existing width. A significant expanse of flat roof is proposed to the side and part of the rear, which is awkwardly juxtaposed against original fabric and the pitch roofs of the proposed two-story rear extension. The ridge of the proposed two-story rear extension would match that of the existing ridge. The scale and design impact can be seen on the proposed drawings, which I pointed out, and as compared against the existing side elevations and appearance and scale. Policy D1 and H4, alterations, extensions and additions, speaks to the design and scale of development to ensure it is appropriate for the location, in this case countryside, and setting of the site and existing character of the original building. It is considered, therefore, the proposal fails to comply with policy. The extensions are clearly not subservient, nor are they consistent with the design of the existing building. And to all intents and purposes, the proposal is disproportionate and poorly designed extensions to the existing house, which also fails to relate to its existing character. Paragraph 8 sets out the reason for refusal along those lines. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. So I will now go to the applicant, Mr. Bell. So if we could have the timer on the screen, please. That would be great. I'm not sure, Bernard, if you can help us out with that.
Yeah, just need to.
That's it. You
Yeah.
need to go out, don't you? So whenever you're ready.
Okay,
Mr.
so Hannah Dungate, who's dealing with the planning app.
Needs to start there.
Sorry. Yeah. Go. Yeah.
Hannah Dungate, who's dealing with the planning app, actually asked me to send those photos last night to help you see my property, and she's forgot to include the one from the road where you can't even see my house from the road. She's done the one from within my drive. So the other views from the field, the 33 acres behind is owned by my neighbour, and they've got no objection to us building. Beyond that is another hundreds of acres of farmland and no dwellings. The house at the front is Gary and Sue, they've got no objections. Next door is Hillview, they've got no objections, and Iona have no objections. Southminster Parish Council have no objections. We took Hannah Dungate's advice in a planning meeting online of how to change the roof line, and she advised us to raise the rear roof pitch to the same as the front roof pitch, and has now backtracked on what she said and said that now the roof pitch is existing to the front. All of what was done to that second pre-planning application from the first refusal was advice given in a Zoom meeting by Hannah Dungate. We wrote it back to her. She had the planning application in May. It took the council until December to give a decision on it. 7 months after me paying them £207 for a face-to-face meeting, it should have took 28 days. The original refusal was given January 21 for the original one. When we called the council to speak to it, we was rudely told we're not the applicants down on the thing, we can't speak to anybody. We've been pushed backwards and backwards by the council, and it took for me to come ask councillors to step in to actually get a decision of refusal for the pre-planning app, because Malden District Council have not done their job that I paid them for. And when I sent them in a subject to contract email calling them to their rights for not doing what they should have done, they chose to ignore it and still didn't respond to me. And despite several changes that were put forward by the council's planning officer itself, they've still refused the pre-planning app. So I don't understand what they want me to do. It's a family home. They've rejected 6 dwellings, but they've approved a mansion to be built there and my house to be knocked down of 608 square
I
metres.
need to stop you there, Mr. Bell. Thank you. So, Councillor Stamp, and actually, no, I need to go to initially to the people who called it in, I think, and I'm going to do so alphabetically. So, Councillor Bassinger, then Councillor Fluker, and then I'm going to. Oh, that's why I was going to say it. Oh, go on then, Councillor Stamp. Go for it.
Thank you. I think it's important,
Yeah, go for
through you, Madam Chair. I was approached when I was the leader by the applicant, and I actually asked Councillor Bassinger to call it in when I was no, I wasn't the leader at the time. Actually, I think I'd been hoofed out. That's a technical term. But it was me who actually asked for it to be called in because I understood there was a slight issue and the applicant had liaised with me, and the service that he had received from the council was really substandard. Regardless, that's maybe not a planning issue, but it really was poor. And the applicant contacted me, and I did what I could, and I contacted Councillor Bassinger to call it in rather than Councillor Fluker, because I wasn't sure what was going to be received. But that's why I've done it. But no, it's true. So anyway, there you go. Thank you. So that's the update. Don't bite on it, but that's why I did it.
A bit of explanation for from that. Thank you, Councillor Stamp. So, Councillor Bassinger, then Councillor Fluker as well.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, I wasn't approached by the applicant, and indeed I was approached by Councillor Stamp and requested
Maybe
to
I
call
should
this
go
in.
to Councillor Fluker first.
But what I would say, looking at this, I can see that this is a standalone property. I can't see any reason whatsoever to refuse this. It's not overlooked, it's miles away from anywhere, and I must admit, to me, I just think it would be a great improvement, and I personally would support it.
Thank you. I'm also familiar with the area, and I would concur with Councillor Bassinger. Councillor Fluker, and then Councillor.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's time that we had a look at the call-in procedure so that all of us can call in Burnham. But anyway, that's by the by. Chairman, yes, I did call this application in, and I was aware of the background, and I do hope that Berner will, as soon as possible, provide a transcript of what Mr. Bell said and send it to the Director of Customer Services, because that's clearly something's wrong there, and I think what Mr. Bell says needs to be tested. Chairman, he has said it in a public meeting, and it does need to be tested. Now, Chairman, as far as the planning application is concerned, and I'm sort of very conscious that Mr. Bell's behind me. If one looks at the plan of this site, yes, it looks like an absolutely massive extension, and it clearly, by looking at the plan, it's not subservient. But then when you look at the elevations of the building, you can see how it actually fits in. And if we go back, Mr. Johnson, to the scheme that was refused, there we go. Now, to me, if you look at, for example, the elevations to the top right-hand corner, it really doesn't look attractive at all, and the whole scheme doesn't. But then when you go to the scheme that we're looking at now, without giving it much thought at all, the whole thing just looks so much better on the eye. And whilst we're talking about the eye, Chairman, and I'm pleased to hear that you visit my ward, but you can't actually, well, hardly see this property from the road. I mean, I've known this property forever, and it's sort of almost tucked over the brow of the hill, so you can't see it. So what's the alternative? Well, in the words of the great Henry Bass, a breeze block mansion sitting on the top of that hill, looking pretty ghastly. You know, we have some in the ward. I won't say where, but we have some in the ward, and they don't look right. Now, Mr. Johnson said that this in itself didn't look right, but perhaps we can have a look at what's there at the moment. Particularly, I think, the rear elevations, the photographs.
Photographs, yeah.
Now, I think there's a better one than that. If you go back one, is there? I mean, looking at this, Chairman, and some of this is going, I mean, I think what we're actually, you know, what the applicant's bringing forward here is a great improvement on this, Chairman. And I know that Mr. Johnson has spoken to Policy D1, but I think that what this application brings forward is enough to satisfy D1. I mean, in my mind, it's much better than what we've got there. It's a long way away from anything else, but I will briefly talk to subservience, and the members will remember some of the properties in Orchard Road in Southminster, which are these large semi-detached houses. Now, when you have a large semi-detached house, or you have a house on the Cobbins where you've got lots of similar houses, I agree, making an extension subservient, changing the ridgeline is very, very important. But when you've got a one-off building like this, you're almost sort of adding to it, Chairman, and to suddenly have something very small next to it or reduced to, and this has got so many different pitches and so many different roof lines. So as far as subservience is concerned, I don't go along with that. But Chairman, before I do make a proposal, can the officer just confirm to me, bearing in mind that no neighbours are complained, that the site notice has been properly affixed to the site? Now, normally, Mr. Johnson, someone produces a photograph, but I mean, I'm quite happy for you to say under normal circumstances it would be, and then we'll accept it as, because nobody's complained about this at all. And it's, you know, it is, we normally have a photograph somewhere in the bundle.
Well, on the file.
Yeah.
They're normally on the file. So if you want to do it in a second, I'm sure.
Well, perhaps, Chairman, while Mr. Johnson's looking for that, Chairman, I've been contacted by some members of the public this evening, and apparently, if one goes on to what's this thing called where this is screened, YouTube. If one goes on to YouTube and you try and download the papers for this meeting tonight, you actually get the full council meeting from the 4th of November. And the Chairman, apparently this has been the same now for quite some time, and one suspects that whilst people are enjoying watching the live streaming, they don't download the papers, but I do know that people have been trying to, and they aren't right. Well, Chairman, I'm sure that Mr. Johnson any moment now is going to find this posted on a nearby tree or on a telegraph pole, and Chairman, subject to that, Chairman, I would say, based on what I've just said, insofar as the fact that I think it does satisfy policy D1, and that the alterations do visually appear subservient to what's going on. It doesn't impact on the amenity because there's no houses there. Chairman, I would propose that we approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you. And if Councillor Helm wasn't going to second that, I would have seconded that from the chair. But I was also going to say that it was. I know, I'm coming to you in a second.
Well done, Michael.
Sorry? I'm terribly sorry. I can't hear very well with your mask on, Councillor. I have hearing issues.
Chairman,
I'm absolutely sure you do, but I do apologise. Right. I couldn't hear. So.
Chairman, in all the excitement, you might not have seen Mr. Johnson show you the notice.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Johnson. Thank you. Yeah, I was going to say that I agreed, but then I didn't want the applicant to think I was disrespecting his house by saying that it was an improvement. But we have a proposal. Did you wish to?
I'll give way to Councillor Channer.
Thank you. So that's proposed by Councillor Fluker, seconded by Councillor Channer, that we go against the officer's recommendations and we do approve this application.
Thank you, Chairman. That will, of course, be subject to the normal conditions concerning start times, finish times, not making any mess on the road, because I drive down there occasionally.
Me, very regularly, Councillor.
And Chairman, very, very importantly as well, materials. So these would be the standard.
Materials and drawing.
Yeah, so they'll be the standard conditions.
Standard conditions, Mr. Johnson. Thank you. Members, can we agree this by assent? Thank you. So that is, we have agreed to support the application and go against the officer's recommendation to refuse. Thank you, members. That brings us to any other items of business that the chairman decides are urgent. The only one I do have is that I know investigations have gone on with the IT department looking to moving towards Burnham in conjunction with Burnham's IT supplier. So that is moving forward. I suggest.
Take one on enforcement, just enforcement.
Go
Chairman,
on,
I know we're not meeting for some time, but I think the issue with enforcement is getting quite serious. There was a question put to the leader during leaders' questions, and maybe there might be a way of perhaps having one of these informal meetings. They are P&C, and for Mr. Johnson's benefit, they normally took place during the day, and the whole idea is really for the members to come together with the enforcement officers to try and solve this conundrum.
Format, even though elsewhere, but I'm familiar with the format. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So members, thank you very much for your contributions this evening, and I now draw the meeting to a close at 8:30. 35. Thank you very much, members. And thank you very much, Bernard and Ben, IT support. Thank you all.